The mountains of Colorado hide many secrets. Among the peaks sit old mines where men once dug for gold and silver. One of these places, the Blackwood Mine, holds darker tales than most. From 1872 to 1926, miners pulled riches from deep inside Blackwood Mountain. During those years, at least 38 men died in cave-ins, blasts, and other tragic events, but locals whisper that many more deaths went unrecorded. When the mine closed, the nearby town of Blackwood quickly emptied. Soon, only empty buildings and the dark hole in the mountainside remained. For years, the mine sat quiet and forgotten. Then in 1978, 5 college students from Denver went there to take photos for a school project. What they found would start the legend of the voices of Blackwood. The students spent their first day taking pictures of the ghost town. In their journals, they wrote about how excited they were to explore the old buildings. The next day, they went to the mine entrance. They only walked about 50 feet inside, not wanting to go deeper without safety gear. While there, one student named Mark recorded some sounds to capture the feel of the mine. That night, at their camp, they played back Mark's recording. What they heard changed everything. Between the sounds of dripping water and their own footsteps were voices, faint at first, but clear enough to hear. The students hadn't noticed any voices while in the mine. They hadn't seen anyone else there all day. The recording still exists. For the first 8 minutes, you hear only the students talking and normal cave sounds. Then, at 8:37, a man's voice says what sounds like, "Left them down below." Another voice answers something like, "Not safe here," or "They're still here." On the tape, you can hear the students react with shock. At first, they thought someone was playing a trick. But as they kept listening, they heard more voices, bits of talk, calls for help, and what sounds like screams far away. The students packed up that night and drove back to Denver in the dark. They didn't want to stay near the mine any longer. Back home, they showed their recording to teachers and local news. The Blackwood voices soon became famous among people who study ghost stories in Colorado. Sound experts who studied the tape couldn't explain the voices. Some suggested radio signals or a hoax, but the mine's remote location makes radio unlikely. Tests showed no signs that anyone had tampered with the tape. For about 10 years after this, many ghost hunters visited the mine. Some left disappointed. Others reported strange things. Equipment that stopped working, sudden cold spots, and feelings of being watched. A few recorded voices like those the students had captured. In summer 1987, the mine claimed another victim. Thomas Granger was a 34-year-old ghost hunter from Boulder who had visited Blackwood many times. Unlike thrill seekers, Granger was careful and always brought proper safety gear. On July 17, 1987, he went into the mine alone. He never came out. When he didn't come home, his wife called the police. Search teams found his car parked near the mine and his equipment set up inside the main tunnel, but they couldn't find Granger. 4 days into the search, they made a strange discovery. They found Granger's journal 800 feet deep in the mine, in a tunnel that had been sealed since a deadly collapse in 1922. No one could explain how he got past the sealed entrance. His final journal entry was dated July 18th at 3:14 a.m. He wrote that he had been following the voices deeper for hours. The voices seemed to be leading him to something important. His writing gets messy toward the end. His last words were, "They're all around me now. Not miners, something else. They've been waiting. God help me, I think they were calling me here all along." Despite searching for 2 weeks, rescue teams never found Thomas Granger. his case remains open. After this tragedy, workers tried to seal the mine with concrete and metal barriers, but strange things kept happening during the work. Equipment broke down for no reason. Workers felt a strong sense of fear. One young worker had a heart attack despite being healthy. As medics took him away, he screamed about faces in the dark, watching from the mine. Eventually, they sealed the entrance and put up no trespassing signs. For a few years, people mostly forgot about the Blackwood Mine. Then in October 1992, hikers passing near the sealed mine entrance heard what sounded like a dozen people shouting for help from behind the concrete wall. When park rangers checked, they found the seal intact, but they too heard faint voices coming from inside the mine. Worried someone might be trapped, workers broke through the seal and searched the main tunnels. They found no sign anyone had been inside, but several search team members reported odd events. Tools moved when no one was looking, lights failing with fresh batteries, and the feeling of being followed. Workers sealed the mine again, but by then its spooky reputation had grown even stronger. In April 1997, the mine's strange story took a new turn. Caroline Mitchell, who lived almost 2 miles from the mine, began hearing voices through the walls of her home. Mitchell was 67 and had lived in the area her whole life. She first noticed the sounds during a big snowstorm when her power was out. With the house silent, she heard what sounded like distant voices coming through her walls. At first, she thought it might be a radio or TV from a neighbor's house, but the sounds kept coming even when that seemed impossible. After hearing the voices several nights in a row, Mitchell set up a tape recorder by the wall where the sounds were strongest. What she captured amazed local researchers. Clear voices could be heard talking about mining work. Sometimes she recorded drilling or blasting sounds. Most disturbing were recordings of men shouting warnings about a collapse, followed by screams and rumbling. When researchers compared Mitchell's tapes with old records from the mine, they made a chilling discovery. One recorded conversation matched almost word for word an argument written about in a foreman's journal from 1897, just days before a collapse that killed 11 men. Researchers found that Mitchell's house sat above a previously unknown tunnel from the Blackwood Mine. Ground scanning radar showed a large collapsed chamber about 200 feet below her house, right where records said the 1897 disaster happened. Mitchell's home became a center for ghost research. Many investigators recorded similar sounds, especially during storms or power outages. Some thought certain weather conditions combined with minerals in the mountain created a kind of recording effect that played back past events. Others suggested more normal explanations, strange echoes from distant roads or even elaborate pranks. But no explanation fully accounted for how historically accurate conversations could be heard so clearly. Mitchell herself was surprisingly calm about her haunted home. "They're just echoes," she told a local newspaper. "These poor men died terrible deaths, and something about this mountain won't let them rest. They're not trying to scare anyone, they're just still here somehow." After Mitchell died in her sleep in December 1997, her house sat empty for several years. Then the Blackwood Historical Society bought it and turned it into a small museum about the mine's history and legends. Visitors to the museum often report strange experiences, especially in the basement. The museum keeps a log where people can write what they experienced. Hundreds of entries describe whispers, phantom smells of coal smoke and dynamite, and feelings of unseen presences. In 2002, Dr. Elena Vasquez, a scientist from Colorado State University, visited with special recording equipment. She wanted to see if something in the rocks might explain the strange sounds. What she recorded was better than anything captured before. Her sensitive microphones picked up over 6 hours of what she called acoustic anomalies. The recordings included not just voices, but complete mine sounds, drilling, hammering, cartwheels, and men shouting over the noise. Most incredibly, she captured what seems to be the entire 1897 disaster, from first warnings to the collapse itself, followed by rescue attempts. When compared with historical accounts, the timing of events on the tape matches written records perfectly. The recording even includes names and conversations mentioned in old newspapers. Sound experts studied Dr. Vasquez's recordings carefully. They found no signs of fakery. No normal explanation could account for such detailed, historically accurate sounds coming from the walls of the house. Dr. Vasquez was careful in her conclusions. She suggested some kind of acoustic imprinting might have happened, where intense sounds somehow got recorded in the rock itself. "While I can't explain how it works," she wrote, "the evidence suggests that somehow the rocks under Mitchell's house can store and replay sounds from the past." In 2005, a new twist came when workers renovating the museum found a hidden door in the basement. The door seemed to lead straight into the mountain. Tests showed the wooden frame was built in the 1880s. Records revealed the house's original owner was Jeremiah Mitchell, a mine investor, and possibly Caroline Mitchell's ancestor. He likely had his own private entrance to the mine. After much debate about safety, workers carefully opened the door. Sure enough, a narrow tunnel connected directly to a previously unknown section of the Blackwood Mine. This explained why the sounds in Caroline's house were so clear. Her home had a direct connection to the mine. Safety officials only explored the tunnel briefly before sealing it again. But they made strange discoveries during that short time. First, they found footprints in the dust that couldn't be more than a few years old, even though the door had been sealed behind a wall for decades. Second, a recorder left near the tunnel entrance captured a clear voice that called one researcher by name, asking, "Why have you come back, Dr. Vasquez?" Even though Dr. Vasquez wasn't in the mine that day, most disturbing were photos taken inside the tunnel. 3 pictures showed what looked like a man in old mining clothes standing in the shadows beyond the camera flash. When experts enhanced the images, they could see he was reaching toward the camera in one photo. After these findings, interest in Blackwood grew even more. The museum had record numbers of visitors, many bringing their own recording equipment. A pattern emerged from these amateur investigations. The voices seemed strongest during new moons between 2 and 4 a.m., and especially when storms were approaching. Under these specific conditions, some visitors could hear the voices without any recording equipment. In 2008, Dr. Raymond Foster, a famous debunker of ghost stories, came to investigate. He set up his own equipment and controlled everything himself to prevent tricks. After 3 nights with no results, Foster was ready to declare the whole thing fake. But on his final night, a sudden storm created the exact conditions others had said were needed to hear the voices. What Foster recorded that night changed his mind. His equipment captured not just mine sounds and voices, but a voice that spoke directly to him. "Dr. Foster, your disbelief changes nothing. We died here. Remember us." Foster, who had monitored his equipment himself the entire time, couldn't explain what happened. Though he didn't say he believed in ghosts, he wrote that whatever is happening at Blackwood represents either an unknown natural phenomenon or something beyond our current scientific understanding. After Foster's investigation, the museum installed permanent recording equipment in the basement. This setup has captured hundreds of hours of what the museum calls mine sounds, a collection that keeps growing. Studies of these recordings show interesting patterns. The sounds don't just repeat the same events over and over. They seem to capture different days throughout the mine's history, from the 1870s to the 1920s. Even stranger, about 8% of recordings include voices that seem aware of the present. They sometimes mention the recording equipment or comment on changes to the house. One clear example from 2012 has a male voice saying, "They've put in electric lights now, much safer than our lamps were." In 2015, visitors began reporting not just hearing the miners, but occasionally seeing them too. Most described shadowy figures glimpsed from the corner of their eye, or strange reflections in windows showing people who weren't in the room. The first photo evidence came when tourist Meredith Holloway took pictures in the basement. When she looked at her photos later, she saw what appeared to be a man in old-fashioned clothes standing behind her in 3 pictures. In each photo, he seemed to be getting closer. In the last one, he stood right behind her with his hand raised as if about to tap her shoulder. Experts who examined the photos found no signs of tampering. More strangely, security cameras showed Holloway alone in the room when she took the pictures. Since then, the museum has captured many strange images on motion-activated cameras. These show shadowy figures walking through walls, tools floating in mid-air, and even what looks like a group of miners sitting in a circle having lunch. In 2017, scientists from Colorado State University and Stanford Research Institute conducted a 2-week study of the site. They used advanced equipment to measure sounds, temperature changes, electromagnetic fields, and other factors. During their study, they recorded 37 unusual events that couldn't be explained by normal causes. Most impressive were cases where different instruments picked up related phenomena at the same time, such as when audio recordings of footsteps matched exactly with spikes in electromagnetic readings and cold spots moving across the room. The scientists concluded that the Blackwood Mine phenomena represent a real, measurable mystery that can't be explained by conventional science and deserves more study. Public interest in Blackwood continues to grow. The museum now holds a lottery for overnight stays in the basement. Thousands apply each year for the limited spots. Those chosen must sign safety waivers and follow strict rules. These overnight visitors have added much to what we know about the phenomena. In 2019, one group captured what many consider the most compelling evidence yet, a video showing both sound and visual anomalies together. In the footage, a mining cart appears in the middle of the basement, along with the sound of metal wheels and a man's voice shouting, "Cart coming through." The cart stays visible for about 12 seconds before fading away. Several witnesses saw this happen, and the video shows their shocked reactions. Technical experts found no signs the video had been faked. Local Native American perspectives have added new understanding to the Blackwood mystery. Representatives from the Ute tribe, whose ancestors lived on the land long before mining began, suggest the mountain may be what they call a thin place, where the barrier between worlds is naturally weak. Ute elder Joseph Rivercloud explained in a 2020 interview, "Our stories tell of a place where ancestors could speak to the living. The miners broke into this sacred space without respect. What is happening now is not surprising to us. The mountain remembers." This view has led some researchers to look at the phenomena through different cultural lenses. Dr. Lakshmi Patel, who studies paranormal beliefs across cultures, has suggested the Blackwood voices might be a blending of energies stored in the location, a natural recording created by human suffering, and the special qualities of the mountain. Some scientists have proposed that the quartz in the mountain might act as a natural recording device. The electrical properties of quartz could theoretically store and replay sound energy under certain conditions. Others point out that many aspects of the phenomena, especially how the voices seem aware of visitors and can interact with them, go far beyond what any known recording process could explain. The Blackwood Mine and its voices remain a mystery that draws researchers and thrill-seekers alike. While many theories exist, from ordinary echoes to genuine hauntings, no single explanation accounts for everything witnessed there. What seems clear is that something unusual continues to happen in this remote Colorado location. Somehow, voices from the past reach into the present, telling their stories and seeking to be remembered. As one recent visitor wrote, "I came hoping to hear ghosts. I left having heard men, real men who lived and died here. Whatever is happening, it has saved something precious. The voices of those who would otherwise be forgotten." The voices from Blackwood Mine continue today. Each new moon brings fresh recordings, adding to the collection of sounds from somewhere beyond our understanding. Voices that remind us the past is never truly gone. As interest grows, researchers have begun looking for similar phenomena at old mines around the world. Early studies in Wales, Pennsylvania, and Australia show promise, though none match Blackwood's clarity. What makes Blackwood special? Some think it's the unique rocks, the specific tragedies that happened there, or something harder to measure. The strong emotions of men who died in darkness, their stories untold and bodies sometimes never found. For those who study these strange sounds, the goal isn't just to prove or disprove ghost stories, it's to understand what the voices from the abandoned mine might teach us about memory, time, and how human experiences might somehow leave lasting marks on the places where they happened. Recent visitors to the Blackwood Museum have reported even more strange events. In early 2021, a family of 4 from Wyoming came to tour the museum. The parents and their teenage children split up to explore different parts of the building. The father, Bill Hansen, decided to check out the basement alone. What happened next was caught on the museum's security cameras. The footage shows Hansen walking to the center of the room and then stopping suddenly, as if listening to something. He turns toward the sealed mine entrance door, nods several times, and begins talking. Though there's no audio on the security feed, it's clear he's having a conversation with someone, yet he's completely alone in the room. After about 3 minutes, Hansen looks startled and rushes upstairs to find his family. His wife later reported that he was pale and shaking when he found them. When asked what happened, Hansen said a miner named Thomas Wilkins had spoken to him, describing in detail a cave-in that happened in 1891. The miner had asked Hansen to tell his family what really happened, that the collapse wasn't an accident, but caused by the mine owner ignoring safety warnings to save money. Hansen, who had no knowledge of the mine's history, provided details that later proved to match historical accounts perfectly. He even mentioned names of miners that were only found in obscure company records, not displayed anywhere in the museum. "I'm not a person who believes in ghosts," Hansen told museum staff, "but I know what I heard, that man was as real to me as anyone I've ever talked to." In summer 2021, the museum tried something new. They invited 10 people who had never heard of the Blackwood Mine to spend a night in the basement. None were told about the voices or other strange events. Instead, they were simply asked to keep a journal of anything they noticed or felt during their stay. The results were striking. 7 of the 10 participants independently reported hearing male voices discussing mining operations. 5 described feeling sudden cold spots moving through the room, and 3 said they had vivid dreams of being trapped in a mine collapse. Most compelling was what happened to participant Maria Gonzalez. Around 3 a.m., she woke suddenly and began writing in her journal. When researchers reviewed her entries the next morning, they found several pages of text written in what appeared to be a different handwriting than her own. The text described daily life in the mine from a first-person perspective, including details about working conditions, pay disputes, and fears about unsafe practices. It was signed James Everett, Tunnel 7, 1904. When shown the writing later, Gonzalez had no memory of writing it. Handwriting experts confirmed it didn't match her normal style. Even more strange, a check of historical records found that a James Everett had indeed worked in the mine's tunnel 7 in 1904. Winter 2022 brought a new development when heavy snow caused a small landslide near the old mine entrance. The slide exposed a previously unknown ventilation shaft leading into part of the mine that had never been mapped. State officials sent a small drone equipped with lights and cameras into the opening to assess potential safety hazards. The drone's footage showed a network of tunnels in surprisingly good condition. But what caught everyone's attention were strange light anomalies that appeared throughout the recording. Floating orbs of light, similar to what are often called ghost lights in paranormal research, can be seen moving against the drone's path. At several points, the orbs seemed to gather around the drone as if examining it. The drone's electromagnetic sensors also detected unexplained energy spikes whenever the lights appeared. Dr. Marcus Chen, a physicist who analyzed the footage, noted that the lights moved in ways that suggest intelligence. "These aren't simply reflections or dust particles," he explained. "They change direction, speed, and formation in patterns that imply purpose." In spring 2022, the Blackwood Historical Society partnered with Dr. Amelia Ramirez, an expert in audio restoration. Using advanced AI technology, Ramirez worked to clean up and enhance recordings from the mine going back to the original student tape from 1978. The enhanced audio revealed far more content than previously understood. What had seemed like random fragments of conversation now formed coherent narratives spanning days or weeks of mine operations. Most chilling were enhanced portions where miners can be heard discussing their fears about unsafe conditions, followed by recordings of the very disasters they had predicted. "It's like listening to the past with perfect clarity," Ramirez said. "These aren't just snippets or echoes, they're complete conversations preserved somehow in their entirety." The enhanced recordings also revealed something no one had noticed before. Beneath the human voices were other sounds that didn't match any known mining equipment. Rhythmic, humming, tapping patterns, and what Ramirez described as a sound like distant singing but not quite human could be heard in the background of many recordings. In June 2022, something unprecedented happened. A group of geology students were measuring the magnetic properties of rocks near the mine when their equipment detected a massive energy surge from within the mountain. At the same time, visitors at the museum reported that the entire building shook, though no earthquake was recorded in the area. That night, the museum's recording equipment captured what sounded like dozens of voices speaking in unison, repeating the phrase, "The way is opening," for nearly 10 minutes. The next morning, museum curator Sarah Lewis found that the previously sealed door in the basement had somehow opened during the night despite heavy locks and security measures. The tunnel beyond now showed fresh footprints, both entering and exiting. Most disturbing was what the security cameras showed. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the cameras experienced interference for about 20 minutes. When the feed cleared, the sealed door was open, and a fine layer of what appeared to be coal dust covered the basement floor. Following this incident, paranormal activity at the museum intensified dramatically. Visitors reported actually seeing miners walking through walls, tools and artifacts moving on their own, and ghostly figures that would appear and interact briefly before vanishing. One visitor, 8-year-old Danny Miller, became separated from his parents during a tour. Staff found him in the basement, happily chatting with what he described as the dust men. According to Danny, the miners had shown him a trick with the rocks that make them float and told him stories about working in the dark. When asked to draw what he saw, Danny produced detailed sketches of men in period-accurate mining gear, complete with equipment that wasn't on display anywhere in the museum. In August 2022, the local sheriff's office received a strange report. A hiker claimed to have seen a man in old-fashioned clothes walking along the mountain ridge near the mine. When approached, the figure reportedly said, "Tell them Thomas Granger is still searching," before walking into the trees and disappearing. This mention of Granger, the researcher who disappeared in the mine in 1987, sent ripples through the paranormal research community. Some took it as evidence that Granger had indeed died in the mine and his spirit remained. Others proposed more unusual theories, that perhaps Granger had somehow slipped through time or into another dimension accessible through the mine. A team from a popular ghost hunting television show visited Blackwood in fall 2022. Though initially skeptical, they captured some of the most compelling evidence yet. Their thermal cameras showed human-shaped heat signatures where no person stood. Their audio equipment recorded clear voices responding directly to questions. Most dramatically, one crew member's jacket was physically tugged by an unseen force, pulling them toward the sealed mine entrance. The show's technical expert, known for debunking false claims, admitted he could find no explanation for what they experienced. In 15 years of investigating supposedly haunted locations, "I've never encountered anything that defies explanation like what we found at Blackwood," he stated. As word of these events spread, the small museum struggled to manage the growing number of visitors. In response, state officials implemented stricter access controls, limiting the number of people allowed in the basement and requiring special permits for overnight stays or research. These restrictions created an unexpected outcome. With fewer people present, the phenomena seemed to grow even stronger. Continuous monitoring equipment began capturing clearer voices, more distinct visual anomalies, and stronger physical effects. Dr. Elizabeth Norton, who installed sensors throughout the museum in early 2023, reported that the basement showed bizarre physical properties. "We're recording temperature variations that defy thermodynamics," she explained. "Areas just inches apart can differ by 20 degrees or more, with no heat source or sink to explain it. And these cold spots move through the room in patterns that match reports of unseen presences." Even more puzzling were the radiation readings. Norton's equipment detected brief bursts of radiation, unlike any known natural source. These bursts often preceded paranormal events and seemed to fluctuate in time with the strange humming sounds captured on audio. In spring 2023, the museum hired Roy Jenkins, a retired mining engineer, to help catalog artifacts and provide historical context for visitors. Jenkins' knowledge of vintage mining equipment and practices made him a valuable addition to the staff. After working at the museum for about 2 months, Jenkins made a startling announcement. He believed he had figured out what might be causing some of the strange phenomena. According to Jenkins, old mines often used a complex system of air shafts, some so narrow they were barely visible on maps. These shafts could create unusual acoustic effects, carrying sounds from miles away or making noises seem to come from impossible directions. "I'm not saying this explains everything happening here," Jenkins cautioned. "But some of what people report could be sounds traveling through hidden air passages in ways that seem supernatural if you don't understand the mine's structure." To test his theory, Jenkins brought in specialized equipment to track air currents and sound waves throughout the building. What he found only deepened the mystery. "It's as if the space itself is constantly changing," Jenkins reported. "The acoustic properties shift from day to day, even hour to hour. That's not something any natural structure should do." In summer 2023, a new phenomenon emerged. Visitors began finding small objects in their pockets after touring the basement. Pieces of coal, old nails, and even tiny fragments of mining equipment that matched items used in the early 1900s. None of these objects were part of the museum's collection. and security cameras showed no one placing them in visitors' pockets. Museum staff established a protocol for documenting these objects, photographing and testing each one. Metallurgical analysis of the nails and equipment fragments showed manufacturing techniques consistent with the mine's operational period. Carbon dating of the coal samples indicated they had been mined between 1880 and 1920. This gifting behavior, as researchers called it, seemed to target specific visitors, particularly those who expressed genuine interest in the miners' lives and working conditions. Children also frequently received these small objects, often finding them accompanied by scribbled notes with simple messages like, "Remember us," or "We're still here." Fall 2023 brought perhaps the most scientifically significant development yet. Dr. Rebecca Chen, a quantum physicist with an interest in paranormal claims, installed specialized equipment designed to detect quantum fluctuations and potential disturbances in space-time. What her instruments recorded was unprecedented. The basement of the museum showed patterns of quantum behavior that, according to Chen, suggested a localized disruption in the normal flow of time. In layman's terms, she explained, it's as if past and present are bleeding into each other in this specific location. Time isn't flowing in a straight line here, it's folding back on itself, creating overlap between moments that should be separated by decades